the last part that we're going to be focusing on is this idea of optimizing their learning. So this is when students can optimize their own learning. And by optimize, what we mean is they understand how learning works and they understand how to make sure that learning is memorable and they retain learning. So I'm using here the idea of Sweller's definition of learning, which is learning is a change in long-term memory. On that basis, how do we make sure that learning isn't just there on the surface, but is actually deep knowledge? And I'm using this pyramid here to sort of show the movement of knowledge in the student. And a lot of this comes from a lot of the work of John Hattie, okay, visible learning. And it's the idea that learning is the process of moving from surface knowledge to more deeper understanding and then to what we call transfer. So what do we mean by surface, deep, and transfer? Well, surface learning is understanding facts that I can recall, but I may not understand how deeply facts are related to each other. So for instance, I might understand the 5 key pieces of information about the beginning and the end of the American Civil War, for instance. I might understand that, but I don't necessarily understand cause and effect. I don't understand how they all fit together. I don't understand necessarily how this connects with this, connects with this. And so what you would do, deeper learning is when we get the opportunity to connect our knowledge together. So we would take, if we were doing the Cold War, for instance, we would take a topic like the Bay of Pigs, and we would take a U-2 spy plane, we would take Khrushchev, and we would find something that connects those things together. Now, this is the hard work. This is the deep work that humans do as learners, but it's also something that AI can do very, very well itself for us. And what it can also do is help us to transfer our learning into other domains too. Now, transfer of learning is when we take our skills and knowledge and we throw it into a new context or a new situation to see how it changes and how it's affected. We have what we call near transfer, which is when we take that knowledge into a similar situation in a similar domain. Or we have what we call far transfer, where we compare our knowledge of the Cold War, let's say, to heavy metal music, right? That would be what we call far transfer. So when we take something that's very disparate and we make connections to it to make it simpler. And if you think about it, all the best teachers that have ever lived and breathed have done this thing they call transfer, whether it's Aesop's fables, whether it's the parables, whether it's Stephen Hawking talking about the metaphor of the teacup to describe entropy in A Brief History of Time. Whatever it is that you're looking at, great teachers are able to take complex concepts and find a way of explaining them through metaphor or through some other analogy. And that's what expert learners can do. That's what learners who have learned something deeply get the opportunity to do. So how might AI help us in that situation? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to flash back up MagicWrite, and we're going to have a look at how MagicWrite might support us for deeper learning. Okay, so let's come out and let's go back into my Canva workspace. And this time I'm just going to start a new file. I'm just going to create a design and choose doc and start with a blank page completely. Let's start first of all by thinking about the different things that we talked about with the UDL. So one of the UDL design options is called Maximize Transfer and Generalization. It's 3.4. And generalization is another learner skill, which is about taking something and making it simpler so that we remember it better. So for instance, if I've just been learning about solids, gases, and liquids in science, I might use the prompt, explain the differences between solids, gases, and liquids in a straightforward way, give examples. A very straightforward and simple prompt. And then you can see it's given me some information there about solids, gases, and liquids. Okay, and it's quite useful, but it's a little bit wordy. It's not necessarily going to help me to remember it at the same level. Okay, so remember, I'm trying to make learning easier, and this might not necessarily have made it that much more palatable for me. So how can I help the AI help me to make this learning more memorable and more easy to understand? What I need to do is take the concept of solids, liquids, and gases and give me a way of understanding them by using something like far transfer so I can really quickly grasp the nettle of what this is. And this is what I think AI does really well, which human beings, unless they're super creative, find it more difficult to do. MagicWrite prompt. Could you make this clearer by comparing each of those states of matter with a superhero? So what it will then do is it will take the concepts of solids, liquids, and gases, and it will find those analogs for you. So it's saying that the Hulk is like solids, and it tells me why. It has a definite shape and volume. Packed together slightly, is denser. Think of it sort of like the Hulk standing on his ground and yielding and powerful. So it asked me to imagine the Hulk, and it asked me to relate the characteristics of solids to that character, right? Then we've got liquid as well, which is Aquaman, and gases the Flash, because we want to think about something moving extremely fast. So fast you can barely see it. It's like a puff of smoke. Picture the Flash zipping through the air, covering vast distances in the blink of an eye. That's the rapid movement and expansiveness of a gas. Okay, so here are some of the ways in which the AI can help us to remember things. And it's not doing the learning for us, but what it is doing for us is helping us to remember it better. And it is helping us to understand these different ways of doing it. Let's come up with another one of file transfer. This time, I'm going to ask it to compare things to children's toys. Can you come up with an easy way for me to remember the key differences between the Triassic and Jurassic eras by using an acronym based on children's toys? Now, a good learner will understand that mnemonics, acronyms, all those sorts of things are really great ways of helping us to remember, but we're taking out the need for them to go and create those acronyms when all they need to do is to use the acronyms to learn the content, right? So we're accelerating that process for them. So here's the prompt I'm using, and here's what it generates. So it's got Lego. Now, what I can then do, because this is really, really helpful, Lego is going to help me to understand those different parts of the Triassic and Jurassic era. So I'm going to insert that into my document, and then I'm going to think, right, this is really helpful. I've got Lego, and Lego is helping me to understand the different characteristics of these eras. What could I else do to make my learning really, really stick? Well, let's go into the elements section of Canva. Let's go into generate your own, and let's say create an image of a dinosaur made of colorful children's bricks. Can't use Lego because it won't let me. It's trademark. So, but let's see what it says and what it comes back with. I'm just going to take this, I'm going to park it right there. Okay, and there we go. I've now got a great way, not just to remembering the content using Lego, but I've actually now got a visual referent as well. I'm using the different parts of the Canva AI in order to generate these very crazy images, but am I going to remember them? Oh my gosh, yes, I'm going to remember them. Okay. Now, we've also talked about AI being maybe blocked at a district level, at a school level. That doesn't necessarily mean that the students won't be at home. And when we talk about student autonomy, what we're hoping the students will do is to use AI in the right ways if they're using it at home, where they do have access to it, whatever LLM they're using, whatever product they're using, they will have access to these tools. So rather, we sort of help them to understand, first of all, how learning works, because once they've got that, once we've taught that, we then just apply those learning skills and strategies onto the use of AI. And we give AI a context then. We're not just saying use AI for this, but we're saying you've got learning strategies. This is how AI fits into those learning strategies. You might do this in lots of different ways, but AI is just one of the tools that you've got at your disposal for all the things that you already do use when you're trying to learn things. And the last thing I'm going to do is think another way about how I might learn things, which is to reprocess it in different forms. Let's carry on down here. And this time I'm going to prompt the AI, give me some causes for vocabulary as bullet points. Now this prompt worked earlier, so let's just pop this in instead. There we go. Anyway, let's insert that for now. And then what I'm going to do, I'm just going to highlight this. And I'm going to come out of Canva for a second, go back into my recent designs. And this time I'm going to bring up, actually, I'll just type it into my templates up here. So fishbone diagram. So I'm just going to pick this one up here. And here we go. I've already got one there for climate change. And I'm just going to add myself a new page. Take this out. And I'm just going to park the information that I got from my AI. And what I would then say to the student is, right, you've got some lots of different causes and effects here in the AI I've generated. Now I want you to reprocess that information into this fishbone diagram. So I want you to take that information, collapse it down, and put in those causes and effects into that diagram for us. Okay. But the point here is that whatever content that you've got, you're now being asked to then reprocess it, pull it down, put it into a fishbone diagram where you're organizing knowledge, you're organizing it into a new form. And it's through that process of organization that students learn the content better. Because when you think about what they're doing here is that they're connecting different things together. Why is that more far advanced than that one? Why is that a sub option of that one? Why is this environment one? You know, I can change all of these. I could put in carbon here or something like that, and then I could put some sub issues underneath. And it's a really great way that students can organize their information. You'll find in Canva, there are lots of graphic organizers, lots of way of visually separating out, collecting, putting together, systematizing the knowledge that the students have. So what I'd like you to do in the last 5-10 minutes or so, I'm just going to give you a little bit of time to have a little think about asking Canva to create connections to make content more memorable. Okay, it's very good at doing these creative comparisons and analogies. So see how you get on with that. Have a little play with it and see if you can get some really great connections with some weird and wonderful things. So it might be a topic that you're currently teaching. In what ways can you get it to come up with some great analogies that might be helpful for your students? Because this isn't just something for students as well. It might help you as a teacher to make concepts more memorable for them when you're teaching it. Okay, particularly if you're teaching younger grade students too. So it gives them something to hook their ideas onto. Anyway, I'm going to give you 5 to 10 minutes to have a little think about that, and then we'll just do a little lead out for the session today, picking up on what we've done and telling you a little bit more about what else is available within this series. Please feel free at this point, of course, to not just have a play, but also to ask any questions or raise any thoughts that you have about this topic. You know, AI, still to a certain extent, we're still feeling our way through this new world. And it's about sort of tempering the excitement with the practical. But for me, it's more about thinking, well, in an ideal world, what sort of things will students be doing with it?
Hey, Phil. This has been so cool watching you work in Canva. I've just been kind of dipping my toes into image generation, and I find that like the prompt engineering is a lot different from text-based. Do you have any advice on like, or any standard, like any like styles you use with image generation that are effective and yeah. I've just noticed they're different. I'm still really sucking at images. So any help you can give, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. So one thing that I've always found is that, and this is actually something that there's 2 things really. First one came up in a Microsoft session at ISTE, which was the image generation tip was to use an adjective, a noun, a verb, and a style. So for instance, draw a 3D letter B on a blue background with fuzzy texture. So adjective, noun, verb, and style, particularly the style. So if you can be very specific about the style that you want, and it could be papier-mâché, or it could be oil pastel, or it could be in the style of a cubist image or something like that. If you're very specific about this, the AI, the generative image tends to be a much more close to what you want it to be. I think someone said to me, it's like garbage in, garbage out. If you don't give the AI enough in terms of what to grab hold of, so there are these little sort of things that happen when we're not specific. So yeah, that one about noun, adjective, style, and verb, I think is really, really important. So you could give that a go. That was the one that really helped me. Yeah.
I like the formulaic approach to it.
Okay, so if you've had a little chance so far to have a little play, what sort of connections have you asked it to make? You can always ask it to make its own connections, or you might have something specific in mind. If you are a classroom teacher who has a particular style, or you might have sort of some quite quirky things in your classroom, you know, you might, if you've got something quirky in your classroom that's very much you might want to attach that to some learning. And it doesn't have to be AI. One of the best things I ever saw was knowing that when students step in to do their final exams, students of course end up doing these exams in places like sports halls, places where they're not used to doing learning in, they're completely out of context. And the teacher took the students, his English teacher, took the students in and he said, right, when you thinking about your writing about your novel, your Dickens novel, Great Expectations, he said, I want you to look around the room, the sports hall, and I want you to look at the basketball hoop. I want you to look at the net, and I want you to think that net is is an image of Pip's dreams falling through the nets once he realizes he's actually being funded by a convict. And then I want you to look at the parallel bars. And I want you to think about the way in which stratification of society in Victorian London at the time. So basically, he codified all of the thematic imagery within the novel into physical things in the sports hall, so that when the students got there, they could just look around, and they could remember all the different aspects to fit in into their writing. So all we're doing here is just being a bit savvy with the way in which the brain works. The brain is very good at taking things which are unusual and remembering them. And I think this is what we're trying to do. This is what AI does particularly well, is it can make those connections in a heartbeat that we would otherwise take days to come up with. You can even ask it to put learning, if you use like an AI like Suno, you can ask it to put learning to a piece of music so you can remember it that way as well. But the more we dual code, the more we take different points of reception of information, whether it's images, sound, and text, the way we combine them together, we've got a much better chance of the brain remembering that. Thank you.